Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the strategies used to create a sales and operation planning strategy. And the first thing I want to look at is a level strategy. And you think to yourself, okay, when in the world would I use something like this? Well, I would have to say uh, when you have some stability in production. So I would think the United Auto Workers, or I'm sorry, the auto manufacturing plants, uh, chemical plants, any place where there's a either steady flow of product that has to be done. So, for example, in some operations, it's actually cheaper to keep the production plant open 24 hours a day and run 3 shifts than it is to shut it down for a shift and then restart it. So, a level strategy is going to come in handy when when there's excessive costs for shutting things down. Now, some of the information we're going to need to construct this level strategy plan, we're going to need this regular time production cost. So this is a dollar amount, and that dollar amount, what it represents is the the cost for a pair of skis for a person to make. So $300 per worker per pair of skis. Also, this overtime production, well, overtime, if we have to use it, the price per pair of skis rises. So how do we get this information? Well, by knowing your production process. The subcontracting cost, probably the easiest one to know because you have to pay the subcontractor for each pair of skis that comes through the store. Uh, Inventory holding cost is also a dollar amount. The inventory holding cost says I have a pair of skis and I've got to hold it for a month or two in inventory. How much is it going to cost me per month? This hours to create a pair of skis. Well, it's 4 hours to create a pair of skis. So apparently it costs $300 per 4 pairs of skis. This maximum production time, this is the limit. This is the limit in my production facility. So 10,000 pairs of skis, that's the maximum that I could ever produce in my facility. Now what you'll see when we go through this example is we never do approach this maximum. How much overtime is allowed per month? This is a policy-based issue. This is what the company allows. Number of worker hours per month. So you look at that, that's 4 weeks at 40 hours a week. So pretty standard, but also something that you know through company policy. Hiring cost per worker. You know, most people who become employed don't think about this cost, but it does cost the employer money to train you. And it also costs money to release labor, usually in the form of a severance package or some other form of payment because you've released somebody. Now this 100, in this first part of the program, this is how many workers we have on hand. Now this list over here, I'm going to constantly refer to, so I'm never going to use these numbers by writing them down again in my table. I'm always going to refer back to these numbers. All right. We were told that there was a beginning inventory of 9,000 and that the average monthly demand, we had to calculate that. So how do you calculate average monthly demand? Well, we took our forecast and I summed it. So the annual demand for skis, 48,000 pairs of skis. The average monthly demand is then the average of this column, or 48,000 divided by 12. The number of workers available, this one we were given, so I didn't have to do anything. I just had to refer back to the number of workers that was actually given to us. Right now we can come over, we can start working on our table. First off, these two columns here in this light yellow, they were given to us and they were not changed. They came from a demand forecast, much like we constructed when we were working through the modules associated with chapters 12 and 13. However, this next step, step 3, this construction of inventory, how do I get a number for inventory? Well, I need to know what the inventory was at the beginning of the month. I add to that the production level for that month, and then I subtract the sales. So I have a 9,000 plus 4,000 gives me 13,000, minus 9,000 should bring me back to 4,000. And when I'm here, now all of a sudden, the inventory from the prior month is just 4,000. That's what's left over. I'm going to add to that my average monthly demand, and then I'm going to subtract from that the demand for the month of February, leaving me with an inventory of 1,000. And I continue that calculation all the way down this column so that I can get an inventory level for each month through the year. Now, because I have an inventory, and actually this is the only method where we'll have an inventory, I am going to have a cost associated with it. It's going to be this holding cost, which we'll get to in a minute. But in step 3, I also need this average inventory per month. Now, the average inventory per month is the inventory at the start plus the inventory at the end divided by 2. So for the month of January, that would be 9,000 starting inventory plus 4,000 the ending inventory divided by 2. Next month is going to be 4,000 plus 1,000 divided by 2, and so on. Same process. I want this average inventory per month because that's what I need in order to calculate a holding cost. Okay. All right, so now we can calculate the regular time. What does it cost me for labor for each month? Well, I have the number of laborers is 100, and it costs me, here, let me just show it. So I have a reference to, I have a $300 labor cost per pair of skis. Each month I'm producing 4,000 pairs of skis. So the production cost is the $300 per pair of skis times the 4,000 skis being produced. And notice this is the level part. Okay, so this labor cost is the same month after month after month after month. And I'm not hiring people, I'm not laying people off. All I'm trying to do is average out my production nice and steady so that I can meet my total demand year over year. Okay, so there's my labor cost, but the other cost I have is this holding cost. Now the holding cost is $10 per pair of skis. So in January, I'm holding on average 6,500 pair of skis in inventory, and it's costing me $10 per pair to hold it. So the cost is $65,000. So I have 2,500 on average in the month of February, and $10 per pair, 25,000, and I just continue this along the line. Now that's step 4. So step 4 is the calculation of costs. Now there are some things missing, and that's okay. We don't need to overcomplicate the example. But the thing that's missing is anything that is not labor and not a holding cost. So there's a whole host of other costs that are obviously missing. But don't, if you're worried about it, because I know I would have at your point, don't worry about it right now. We can always add those later. Let's just get this part now. Now total cost, step 5 is fairly easy. I just have the total cost per month. So I'm adding up the labor cost and the holding cost on my inventory. So that's all this column is. And then ultimately, I'm interested in the sum of those costs. So the cost of this level production process, $15,167,000. That's a forecast. Now, whether everything goes to plan or not, that's not really the issue right now. Right now is a planning process. And given my demand of 48,000 pairs of skis, I will need to spend $15,167 in labor and holding costs for me to produce skis steadily. So hopefully that makes sense. You know, I didn't go over this cumulative forecast, but this was so I could draw a picture. This one down here, which we never really talked about. You know, the cost of the forecast. You know, the cumulative forecast says ski demand is up, then down, then back up. But I am producing in such a way to just make ski production steady. So there are times when I have holding costs in excess of production, and there are times when it's the other way around.